After bankruptcy, I became my enemy's bodyguard. After going bankrupt, I had to work as a delivery driver. When I encountered my sworn enemy Victoria, she deliberately tried to humiliate me, saying, "Kiss me once, and I'll give you $100,000. The next moment, I grabbed her chin and kissed her. She blushed and stammered, trying to push me away. How? How could you do this for money?" I pressed her against the sofa and kissed her intensely. Afterward, I left contentedly with a check worth millions, leaving my enemy disheveled, her face covered in kiss marks, looking dazed. The temperature was dropping, and our family business collapsed without warning. From the moment I received news of our company's bankruptcy to putting on the yellow delivery uniform, it only took a month. Having lived a privileged life for over 20 years, my life plan had been incredibly simple: take over the family business after my father's retirement and keep the company running. I thought my life would be smooth sailing, but now my nose was red from holding back tears. I had struggled to find even this delivery job. It sounds easy, but it really wasn't simple at all. However, I quickly got a place to stay. What really broke me was when that door opened, and I saw Victoria's freshly awakened face. My forced smile instantly crumbled. It was 3:30 in the afternoon, and Victoria, my childhood friend turned enemy, had just woken up. This spoiled rich girl, useless and unmotivated, was exactly the type of privileged brat I couldn't stand. Compared to me, Victoria looked exceptionally polished. Her face was still as beautiful as ever, fair-skinned even without makeup, with delicate features, strikingly attractive. Even her messy, tousled hair looked aesthetically pleasing. She leaned lazily against the doorframe, not taking the delivery I was holding out. When she first saw me, there was a flash of surprise in her eyes, but quickly her expression turned amused. Well, if it isn't young Master Sincere, what a coincidence," I replied with a forced smile. Indeed. 7 days without seeing you feels like a week." Victoria turned gracefully and went inside, gesturing for me to come in, holding back the urge to throw the delivery in her face. I carefully placed the food on her dining table. "Don't forget to leave a good review," I said, turning to leave. "Wait," her voice came from behind. I turned around, but the words caught in my throat. Victoria was lounging lazily on the sofa, her expensive silk nightgown's collar slightly loose, revealing elegant collarbones. Her beautiful face wore a smile, eyes bright and expressive. Without warning, she pointed to her lips and said, "Kiss me once, $100,000. I instantly understood her meaning. Fragments of memories flashed through my mind. Years ago, during a trip, I nearly drowned as I couldn't swim. Victoria saved me, performing CPR. After regaining consciousness, I was in a daze, not responding to anyone's questions, my expression dark. She thought I was disgusted by her, and her eyes turned red with anger. She said she should have just kicked me further into the Pacific Ocean for a vacation. This incident became a running joke among our mutual friends, teasing about how the beloved Miss Victoria had been so thoroughly rejected, and how I, Sincere, looked like I'd lost half my life. Looking back now, it seems the spoiled Miss Victoria really knew how to hold a grudge. I raised an eyebrow and asked, "Really?" Victoria maintained her lazy demeanor, though looking somewhat smug like she'd won a battle. She nodded. "I always keep my word." "But Sincere, you..." Before she could finish, I had already strode over, cupped her chin with one hand and kissed her. Her unfinished words were lost in the flurry of kisses. Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. After a moment of shock, she finally reacted, pushing against my shoulders, though with such little force it was negligible. It almost felt like token resistance. As our lips met, I couldn't help but notice how soft hers were. I wondered how such soft lips could always speak such infuriating words. Noticing she was struggling to breathe, I pulled away and mockingly said, "Miss Victoria doesn't even know how to breathe while kissing. Don't tell me you've never been kissed before?" She was panting, her fair skin flushed pink, the tips of her ears turning almost crimson. Sincere, you." Those beautiful almond eyes kept darting around, avoiding my gaze. Look at me. Why won't you look at me? I tightened my grip on her chin slightly, my other hand resting on the back of her neck. My voice was slightly hoarse as I asked, "Does the offer of 100,000 per kiss still stand?" Victoria turned her face away, answering weakly, "Yes." "Oh? Then let's continue." I leaned down and kissed her again, taking control. Victoria's body tensed up, the usually haughty young lady melting under my kisses. I left Victoria's apartment feeling satisfied, a check worth millions in my pocket. She remained there, pen in hand with the check, looking dazed, her glossy lips marked with kisses. Definitely not the work of less than half an hour. Just as I stepped out of the elevator, I ran into Ethan, my former friend. After my family's troubles, he had mocked me and done all sorts of despicable things. It's thanks to this buddy that I, a graduate from a prestigious university, couldn't find any job and kept getting rejected from interviews. His expression changed when he saw me, asking nervously, "What are you doing here?" Before he could mock my delivery job, he seemed more concerned about why I was in this building. I found it amusing. This person was truly stupid, always making his weaknesses so obvious. I said casually, "Victoria wanted me here, so I came." I wasn't lying. After all, she had ordered the delivery herself. Ethan's expression instantly turned ugly. "Sincere? Have you no shame? You're not worthy of being with Victoria anymore." Noticing my yellow delivery uniform, he relaxed slightly but still maintained his arrogant tone. "If you know what's good for you, stay far away. You're not in our world anymore." I blinked and replied off topic, "Your parents must be quite humorous." Ethan frowned, asking, "What do you mean?" "How else could they have produced such a joke like you?" Ethan clenched his jaw in anger. As I walked away with a smirk, I said, "We were friends once. I hope someone feeds you when you eat and pushes you when you walk." Sure enough, not long after cursing Ethan, I got fired from my delivery job. I crouched by the roadside thinking about finding a suitable brick. Before I could find one, debt collectors called, their tone aggressive. I could faintly hear my mother crying in the background. I gritted my teeth, trying to stay calm. After saying many placating words, I rushed to the bank and transferred the millions I had just received. Victoria certainly didn't lack money, and I felt no guilt spending it. After all, over the years I had spent countless amounts on her and done countless things for her. However, loan sharks are bottomless pits that can never be filled. The person who jumped from the 50th floor to escape their debts might be free from worries, but they left behind living people to suffer. Yet how could I hate him? My father had given me the best for over 20 years. It wasn't until after his death that I learned the company's crisis had emerged years ago. He had kept it from me because he knew I had no interest in business and only agreed to take over the company to avoid disappointing him. So he wanted to let me enjoy a few more years of freedom. I rushed back home to our shabby rented apartment, where the door was open and women's suppressed crying could be heard from inside. I walked in to find what little furniture we had smashed together. I silently began cleaning up. My mother's eyes were red from crying as she came to hold my hand. Before she could speak, I comforted her. "I just paid off one debt. They won't cause trouble for a while." My mother choked up. "But how will we go on? How can we possibly continue living like this?" I didn't know. I really didn't know how we were supposed to continue this cursed life. But I still smiled and told her, "There's always a way, Mom. Trust me." Those hoping for a boyfriend to fall from the sky are in luck. I felt like jumping off a building. But standing on the not-so-high rooftop of our rental apartment, after looking at the unremarkable view for a while, I came back down. After composing myself, I continued looking for work. To avoid being discovered by Ethan, I could only find temporary jobs. Fortunately, I had this handsome face of mine. Some high-end restaurants, hotels, and even stores only hired attractive staff. Take this restaurant's manager, for instance. One look at me and he told me to start work right away. While serving dishes, I was grabbed by the arm by a heavily made-up middle-aged woman. She smiled at me lewdly. "My, When did such a handsome young man start working here? You look barely over 20. What a waste of that face and height to be a waiter. Having some troubles, aren't you? Why don't you get to know sister here? I can introduce you to a quick money job. I frowned and expressionlessly shook off her hand, saying, sorry, I'm working. But she persisted. Oh, come on. Get to know sister first, then continue working. Your manager won't mind, we go way back. In my 20-some years of life, I'd never been treated like this. Rather than feeling broken, I felt more like feeling bankrupt. The middle-aged woman eyed me lustfully, standing up affectedly and lowering her voice. Don't be so stubborn, darling. Sister will treat you well. Come spend a night with me, we can discuss the price. She made a gesture indicating a number. I looked at her coldly, lips pressed tight, and turned to leave. The middle-aged woman still wouldn't give up, grabbing my hand and saying, Hey, stop acting so precious. You're already working as a waiter. What's left that you can't give up? I was thoroughly disgusted by her touch and yanked my hand away forcefully. Unexpectedly, she fell to the ground. At 6 feet 2 inches, I worked out regularly and was naturally stronger. Her dining companion quickly helped her up, and then both started cursing at me like fishwives. I remained expressionless, staring at them coldly until one woman, face contorted with rage, rushed forward to slap me. Her hand was caught before it could land and she was slapped instead. So fast and hard that surrounding onlookers gasped in shock. I turned to see Victoria, her face equally cold, looking down at the two women like they were trash. The manager, who had been lurking in the shadows, rushed over upon seeing Victoria, quickly having security control the two still shouting women, then profusely apologizing to us. Victoria narrowed her eyes and said, Let this kind of trash in again and you can go home. The manager broke into a cold sweat, bowing repeatedly. He had just been looking down on me, and now he was smiling at me obsequiously. Looking at the scene before me, I slowly unclenched my fists. Victoria grabbed my wrist and left the restaurant. I looked at the figure walking ahead of me and smiled slightly. How inconceivable. My sworn enemy, my childhood friend, had become my backup. Sitting in her sports car, I closed my eyes tiredly and mumbled, Lost another job. Victoria's tone was oddly sarcastic. Sincere, I never knew you were so independent. I opened my eyes and asked her, Are you complimenting me? Haha, of course. What are you angry about, Victoria? Victoria slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the side of the road. She turned to stare at me, sneering, Who am I to you? Why would I be angry? I frowned slightly, still finding her anger inexplicable. After all, I was the one in such a miserable state. What right did she have to be angry? After staring at me with frustration for a while, Victoria asked, Sincere, don't you know how to use that mouth of yours? This question left me bewildered. Why didn't you reach out to me? The moment you asked, I would have given you anything. Meeting Victoria's gaze, those beautiful eyes were crystal clear, without a trace of guile. I felt dazed, finally understanding her meaning. I smiled, drawing out my words. Are you really this good to me? Victoria awkwardly turned away. Don't flatter yourself. It's just because we're childhood friends. I responded, but I have many childhood friends. Before my family's troubles, I grew up with many friends in the same social circle, all getting along harmoniously. After everything happened, except for Ethan, whom I met later and who kicked me while I was down, the others simply maintained their distance quietly. The family business had fallen, truly fallen, with absolutely no hope of resurrection. I really wasn't in their social class anymore. Some friends did help me, lending me money, which I was grateful for because they knew I couldn't repay it. As for the rest, I wouldn't shamelessly ask for their help. And those hypocritical relatives who always talked about being one big family? After dividing up the last scraps of value from our business, they shut their doors to us. Victoria's family and mine were old friends, with the closest relationship. After the bankruptcy, they helped in every way they could, exhausting all friendly obligations. I wasn't sure if Victoria's family knew that besides the bank loans, My father also owed huge amounts to loan sharks, but I could never ask Uncle William to help pay off these debts. Victoria said she was dealing with work abroad when my family's troubles hit. So busy she knew nothing about our situation. She only returned to the country recently, and after catching up on sleep from her jet lag, learned everything. When she was about to contact me, she coincidentally encountered me delivering food. She couldn't resist teasing me, but never expected me to turn the tables on her. She said she truly had no idea I was living such a life now. Otherwise. She left her sentence unfinished, suddenly stopping. Victoria's fair, delicate ears turned red. Hearing this, I couldn't help but swallow, also not expecting my impulsive behavior yesterday. But I pretended to be nonchalant, waving my hand casually. Oh well, making money is making money. I'll just consider it like being bitten by a dog. Who would have thought Victoria's face would darken instantly? She gritted her teeth and shouted, "Get out of my car!" Pretending not to hear, I squinted at her and smiled. "How was my kissing technique? Want another round? I'll give you a discount." In an instant, Victoria's fair face turned crimson. This time she stammered, unable to even say you. I suddenly felt playful, finding her stark contrast to her usual proud, arrogant self too entertaining. How could someone so typically haughty be so pure? I unbuckled my seatbelt, leaned closer to her, gently lifted her chin, and met her eyes. I asked again, "Well, want another kiss?" I smiled as I watched her, my eyes clear, purely wanting to tease her. But suddenly Victoria unbuckled her seatbelt and grabbed my wrist. As the distance between us shortened, the atmosphere grew increasingly intimate, making even the air seem thin and hard to breathe. Victoria stared at my face, her red lips parting slightly. But before she could speak, I quickly apologized. "Miss Victoria, I was wrong. I was just joking." I surrendered so quickly that Victoria was stunned for a second. The hand gripping my wrist tightened briefly before letting go. Victoria gave a cold laugh, settled back in the driver's seat, fastened her seatbelt, and started driving. I turned to look out the window, pretending to admire the scenery while my heart was practically beating out of my chest. Victoria took me back to her luxurious penthouse in the city center. Being somewhat of a neat freak, she first took a shower after returning home, changed into clean, comfortable clothes, and came out of the bathroom drying her hair. I was too focused on the content on my phone to notice she had come up behind me until she spoke, startling me. I quickly turned off my phone screen and glared at her. Victoria acted as if nothing had happened, stood up straight and handed me the hairdryer, saying, "Help me dry my hair." I smiled and said, "Wow, that's quite presumptuous. 10,000 per service, miss. How's this temperature for you? Only seeking wealth, not true feelings." After Victoria's hair was dried, it was soft and fluffy. Wearing simple, clean pajamas with her bare face still looking exquisite, her big eyes clear and moist like a lake. She looked incredibly youthful. Putting away the hairdryer, I muttered, "How do you still look 18? Victoria lounged lazily on the sofa. "I maintain eternal youth." Ha! My phone chimed. I glanced at it. Bank notification of $100,000 deposit. "Miss Victoria is truly youthful. Every time I see your magnificent face, I'm reminded of those beautiful school days." I had thought Victoria was just rich and naive, but now I realized she was indeed rich and naive, because she casually mentioned she would help me pay off my debts. I was so moved I almost teared up, asking her, "Really? It's several $1,000,000. "Oh, in that case, never mind." Victoria gave a light laugh, picking up a bank card she had carelessly tossed on the table and holding it out to me. I was instantly stunned. She really wasn't just talking big. Victoria continued, "I've already sent someone to help your mother look at houses. Until we find a good one, you can stay at a hotel for these few days." I was dumbfounded. Seeing my complete surprise, Victoria cleared her throat and emphasized, "Auntie was so good to me, I can't bear to see her suffer." Victoria had always been fair-skinned with a sweet tongue, incredibly likable. My mother was especially fond of her, treating her like her own daughter. The happiness came too suddenly. My mind went blank. When I was completely alone and helpless, Victoria hadn't appeared immediately. But now she proved with actions that she had truly been unaware of my situation. And once she knew everything, she absolutely wouldn't stand idly by. After a long silence, I said very honestly, "I won't be able to pay you back." Victoria raised an eyebrow and asked, "Who's asking you to repay? Besides, haven't you forgotten something?" I asked, somewhat confused, "What? Or did I save your life or something?" Thinking of something, Victoria awkwardly averted her gaze, stammering, "You know that RT thing." I asked innocently, "What happened between us?" "That thing from 5 years ago." "What thing from 5 years ago?" "Oh, 5 years ago, what happened?" Victoria suddenly turned to face me, her clear eyes staring at me dangerously as they narrowed. "Damn it, you've completely forgotten." I felt increasingly innocent. "Well, tell me what it was, at least give me a hint." "That thing between us." "You keep saying ah and that, how am I supposed to understand?" Victoria's expression became complex, mixed with annoyance. Her ears were getting red, probably from anger. She cursed, "You stupid fool." She roughly ruffled her own hair and walked towards her room, then started kicking me out. "Pack your stuff and go to the hotel. It's all arranged. This great lady needs to sleep." I followed her, asking, "How can I do anything else if you don't explain? Just tell me directly, please. I'm really curious." Victoria had already entered her room. Seeing me follow her in, her graceful figure paused. She turned around, crossed her arms, and blocked me. "I won't tell you, and don't come into my room." I looked up at her and said, "Either you're hiding a lover, or your obsession with cleanliness has reached this level, not even letting people into your room." Victoria looked at me for a few seconds, then raised her hand to close the door, saying, "When I say no, it means no." I put my hand against the door and continued, "Then tell me." After a moment of confrontation, she suddenly let go of the door. Since I was still pushing against it, I lost my balance and crashed forward into her. Compared to me, she was petite and was easily knocked down. At the crucial moment, I protected her, becoming a human cushion. Victoria fell on top of me, and my nose was filled with the fresh scent of her recent shower, making me feel slightly dizzy. She seemed caught off guard, looking at me with wide, helpless eyes. Suddenly feeling parched, I felt my entire body stiffen. I quickly pushed her away, got up and walked away, hurriedly saying, "If you won't tell me, then don't. Actually, I don't even want to know anymore." My cheeks were burning hot. From behind came Victoria's light laughter. The person who had been angry just moments ago suddenly seemed in high spirits. Everything was arranged properly in just a day or two, and my circumstances underwent another dramatic change. My mother sat on the expensive, soft sofa, wearing a designer shawl, looking like her old, wealthy self again. She wiped her tears and said, "Thank goodness for Victoria. Without her, we would truly be helpless, struggling just to survive." After years of trading barbs and mutual antagonism with Victoria, I never imagined she would go to such lengths for me, almost to the point of saving my life. I was truly grateful to her. I secretly vowed that as long as it wasn't illegal, I would do anything Victoria asked without hesitation. However, Victoria didn't ask me to do anything illegal. She asked me to be her bodyguard, and I gladly accepted. On my first day as Victoria's bodyguard, when she wasn't awake by 9 in the morning, I knew I'd made the right choice. Looks like tomorrow I'll set my alarm for 9, squeeze out the toothpaste tonight, and get 3 more seconds of sleep. Before graduating, Victoria had already taken over part of the family business. After graduation, she directly became the CEO of a subsidiary company. The major project she had been handling abroad was perfectly completed. She had always been the pride of her family, an excellent student since childhood, and surely possessed strong business capabilities. Otherwise, as a woman, she wouldn't have had such high chances of inheriting the family business. Friends in our circle all said this, and I felt proud. Victoria was truly remarkable, which meant my seemingly unpromising job actually had a bright future. On my first workday, I waited for Victoria at the company entrance. Even on a workday, Miss CEO slept until she naturally woke up. She messaged saying she was on her way and told me to wait so we could go in together. Soon, a luxury car pulled up. I looked over and suddenly froze. Victoria stepped out of the car, and my breath caught. Her long hair flowed like seaweed, her face exquisitely perfect. Below was a wasp waist and long, fair legs, her body proportions impeccable. Victoria strode over to me on her long legs, her slender, fair hand waving in front of my completely frozen face, asking, "Where's your soul?" I swallowed hard and struggled to look away, asking, "Victoria, do you always dress up for work? What else would I do? But you like this. It's not good for company development." Victoria frowned slightly and said, "What nonsense are you talking this early in the morning?" As expected, once we entered the company, male employees' eyes turned to hearts, seemingly wanting to fix their gazes permanently on Victoria. It felt like they were all ready to spin 360 degrees, drop to one knee, and propose with flowers in their hands and roses in their mouths. From another perspective, Victoria was a good boss, even providing benefits to employees. This seemed like it could promote company development, but I wasn't bad either. To be a good bodyguard, I deliberately wore a crisp suit. Tall with long legs, broad shoulders, and a narrow waist. The well-tailored suit made me look even more striking. Many female employees were staring at me, while Victoria's face turned cold. One glance from her, and everyone instantly disappeared, working hard. Victoria had someone show me around to handle the onboarding procedures. After everything was settled, I took the initiative to greet several male employees who had been eyeing me. Perhaps because I looked approachable and easy to get along with, they immediately came over to chat. After a brief introduction, they eagerly asked, "Mr. Sincere, how did you manage to get so close to CEO Victoria?" Yeah, you two seem really close. Is there something between you?" I replied somewhat innocently, "We're not that close, just normal distance." One male employee said in confusion, "Isn't CEO Victoria androphobic? I've never seen her talk to male employees except for work reports." I was stunned for 2 seconds before bursting into laughter. "Ha ha ha, androphobic. Who on earth made up such nonsense?" The employee replied seriously, "CEO Victoria herself." I instantly stopped laughing. But very quickly I figured it out. Probably some employees with ulterior motives tried to get close to her, so she made up this excuse to avoid unnecessary trouble. I decided to help maintain this facade and said, "Oh, I just had a flashback. I think there might be something to that." They grew even more curious, asking me, "Then why are you?" I answered with a straight face, "Maybe because I'm her distant cousin." Upon hearing this, they all had an "oh, I see" expression. No wonder she suddenly hired a male bodyguard. Turns out he's a distant cousin, probably from a fallen family that CEO Victoria kindly took in. Their gazes became even more friendly. Female colleagues quickly learned that I had no special relationship with Victoria, and many actively tried to get to know me and add my contact information. Somehow this news reached Victoria's ears. She coldly laughed, saying nothing, but by afternoon, a rumor spread through the company that the handsome new bodyguard was gynophobic and should not be approached. Actually, I was quite free with not much to do. Victoria worked very seriously, putting aside her young lady demeanor, focusing intently on various documents. Suddenly, there was a knock on the office door, and before getting a response, it opened. The visitor was dressed flashily, a man wearing heavy cologne. His smile instantly crumbled when he saw me. "Sincere, why are you here?" I sat on the sofa, waving at him with a bright smile. "Hello, Ethan?" Ethan's face turned ashen, but when he turned to see Victoria, he forced himself to hide that expression and squeezed out a smile. "Victoria, why is Sincere here? Is he bothering you?" Seeing him, Victoria's expression instantly turned cold, her entire face showing impatience. Her beautiful brows furrowed as she asked, "Why are you here again?" I instantly laughed, "Ha ha ha, who's really bothering Victoria? We all know who it is." Ethan clenched his jaw, his eyes blazing with anger. He shouted at me, "Shut up! I warned you before. You're not in our world anymore. Don't covet things that don't belong to you." I let out a light laugh and was about to retort, but suddenly had a flash of inspiration and held back. Walking to Victoria's side, my clear eyes filled with innocence and my face full of grievance, I said, "Sister, he's so mean. I'm a bit scared." Victoria's expression instantly froze. I gently tugged at her clothes, my eyes as clear as a fawn's, gazing at her lovingly and earnestly. "Sister, didn't you hear? He actually said I'm not from the same world as sister." "But my world is full of you." Victoria's temple was throbbing. Ethan, enraged, rushed forward trying to push me away. "Get away from Victoria." But before he could touch me, Victoria stood up and blocked him with her hand. Her tone was incredibly cold as she threatened, "Try touching him and see what happens." Ethan's face turned pale, embarrassment flashing across his features. But I hadn't finished my performance. Despite being a head taller than Victoria, I still pretended to hide behind her, looking innocently at Ethan and saying, "Brother's expression is so fierce, so scary. Don't scare sister." Then I turned to Victoria and said, "Sister is defending me. I feel so happy. Sister is so busy with work and brother keeps disturbing her. Unlike me, I only think about making things easier for sister. But sister, don't be angry with brother. It's not good for your health, and that would make me sad." Unable to listen or watch anymore, Ethan glared at me fiercely and stormed out. After the door closed, I immediately doubled over laughing, holding my stomach. "That felt so good." Revenge is truly sweet. Victoria had her back to me, her expression hidden. "You." After finishing laughing, I looked at the time and energetically stood up, speaking casually. "When life is good, enjoy it to the fullest. It's time for me to clock out. Life has its ups and downs. Happiness comes from good food." I had planned to try the company cafeteria, but Victoria took me to a high-end restaurant instead. Such an extravagant life. In my next life, I'd still be willing to be Victoria's bodyguard. After eating, just as we were preparing to leave, Victoria suddenly met an acquaintance and told me to sit and wait for her return. I nodded obediently and said okay. But after sitting for a while, her phone suddenly rang. I stood up looking around but couldn't see her. While debating whether to answer the call, it stopped. Victoria's phone had no password, and I accidentally swiped open the screen. It was a search engine page, and the search history caught my eye. What does it mean when a guy suddenly calls his enemy sister? Do guys only act cute with people they like? If a guy says a girl is his whole world, does it mean he likes that girl? How to make a not-so-bright fiancé remember he has a fiancé? After reading these, I felt like someone had put a gun to my forehead and pulled the trigger. Bang! My mind was buzzing. There were too many keywords swirling in my head, and I didn't know where to start processing them. I took a deep breath, my gaze stopping on the word fiancé. Damn, I had forgotten. Victoria and I were engaged. 5 years ago, at Victoria's 18th birthday celebration. It was an extremely grand and luxurious affair, with guests from all around. The most unexpected thing was when Grandfather Lou publicly announced the marriage alliance between the Lou and our families. Victoria, who had just kicked me, froze. She looked at her friends around her. They were also shocked, but their ears weren't deceiving them. They all nodded. Victoria's brain had stopped working. Which member of the Lou family? Who was going to be engaged to Victoria? Continuing with the translation, a friend with a complex expression said, "Miss Victoria, are you being silly? You're your family's only daughter." It was like a thunderbolt from a clear sky, earth-shattering news. She looked incredulously at the other party involved. Clearly, I also had no idea about this, my expression slightly bewildered. At this point, my mother had already walked to my side, whispered a brief explanation in my ear, and then pushed Victoria and me toward Grandfather Lou. Apparently, the elders had already arranged everything without asking for our opinions. No wonder there were media representatives invited to the event, now holding cameras and filming us non-stop. Under Grandfather Lou's benevolent gaze, Victoria and I exchanged engagement rings and smiled happily while arm in arm. No one knew that Victoria was nearly bruising my arm with her grip. I smiled and leaned down to whisper in her ear, "Squeeze one more time and I'll make you give an engagement speech in front of everyone. Want to try?" Victoria laughed lightly and said, "It's only been 10 minutes since finding out about this and you're already so deeply into the role?" I pulled her hand down and interlocked our fingers, saying, "Just put up with it for your young master's sake." Victoria spat out, "Put up with your sister." The next day, the paid media widely publicized the event. The focus naturally wasn't on Victoria and me being childhood sweethearts or a perfect match, but rather on the massive business benefits that would come from the merger of the Lou and our family's companies. They achieved their goal, but Victoria and I firmly refused to acknowledge this arrangement. We became even more antagonistic toward each other, arguing and fighting whenever we met. Our mutual friends were relieved, laughing and saying, "We knew you two couldn't get along behind our backs. Your coming-of-age ceremony turning into an engagement party. We thought we were just playing around, not seriously matchmaking. It's ridiculous to try forcing you two together. We can't even leave you alone in the same space. How could you ever live under the same roof?" Victoria's face darkened, her thin lips pressed into a straight line. I frowned, somehow feeling displeased. She was still angry. Was she that unwilling? So I chimed in, "The rings are just being used as table props now. It was all just an act. Don't ever mention it again." All right, we won't mention it. Don't be angry." Okay, we'll never bring it up again. Don't fight." But Victoria froze for a moment, suddenly stood up, kicked the table, and stormed off. Recalling everything now, my emotions were complex. After that time, friends almost never mentioned this incident in real life, and the online buzz died down soon after. The elders hadn't been too forceful. Seeing both young people's unwillingness and having achieved their goal, they also stopped mentioning it. Gradually, I forgot about this matter, but Victoria hadn't. She had always remembered. Thinking of this, my breathing hitched slightly. Why? Why did she keep remembering? Continuing with the translation, that afternoon, Victoria said she had my first official assignment. I nodded seriously and said, "Go ahead. Do I need to spy on our competitors? Do you even have that capability?" Victoria snickered, handing me a tablet. The page displayed was identical to what I'd seen on her phone days ago, a prestigious national architectural design competition. I was stunned for a few seconds, looking up at her in surprise. Victoria smiled beautifully, her features relaxed, showing her two canine teeth, looking playful and lively as she said to me, "Bring back an award." She led me to another office, equally spacious and designed in the same style as hers. The vase on the desk held fresh white roses, and everything was neat and clean, as if it had just been cleaned. She said, "This will be your office from now on." "So when you said there wasn't a separate office this morning, it was because it wasn't ready yet?" I asked. "I thought I was just your bodyguard?" Victoria leaned lazily against the doorframe and nodded. "You are, so? Such great treatment. Is there a problem?" I looked up at her and said calmly, "Our company has nothing to do with architecture. Why do you want me to enter the competition?" Victoria turned and left, leaving only one sentence. "I don't care. This is the work I'm giving you. Complete it well. Try not winning a prize and see what happens." I stood there, letting out a light breath after a moment, my lips curling up involuntarily. Victoria was being excessively good to me. I had majored in architectural design in college, with economics as my minor. My parents had no objections, only asking that I return to inherit the family business after I'd had enough fun. But we never expected our family would meet such misfortune. This architectural design competition was extremely prestigious. The winner would not only become instantly famous, but also get an opportunity to join that architectural firm, something countless participants dreamed of. I had originally planned to participate, but after experiencing so much recently, my mind couldn't settle down to create. Now Victoria was pushing me forward, wanting me to pursue what I desired. I walked into this office, noticing those beautiful white roses. The meaning of white roses is pure, genuine love, the companionship of youthful friendship. For the next period, I devoted all my energy to creation. In architectural design, my grades had always been excellent, earning high praise from professors. I'd won many major awards, proving my capability. But while I was busy working, someone shameless came to pollute the air around me again. Presumably, Ethan had discovered that I had also registered for this design competition. At the bottom of my apartment building, I encountered the furious Ethan. He got straight to the point, demanding, "Why are you entering the competition? Hey bro, what gives you the right?" I looked at him, my expression calm, my voice emotionless as I remarked, "You really are like a rat." "What did you say?" "I said you're like a rat from the gutter, monitoring my every move." I smiled, my expression spirited. "Ethan, I'm very curious. Just how jealous are you of me?" Ethan tried to make himself sound righteous. "Ha, me? Jealous of you? Why would I be jealous of someone whose family went bankrupt and is drowning in debt, someone from the bottom?" I nodded and said, "Oh right, not just jealousy, also fear. That's why you're here making these meaningless accusations. Afraid of losing too badly?" Ethan was my university classmate, and we had been good friends back then. That's how he met Victoria through me. Looking back now, he probably approached me just to get close to Victoria. Thinking of something, I smiled slightly and continued, "This competition will be different, you know. You probably won't be able to pull any strings this time." His face paled as he said, "What nonsense are you talking about?" I laid it all out directly. "You think I didn't know? Why in several competitions you got first place while I came second? I knew, but considered you a friend, so I didn't expose you. Always losing to me, never achieving good results. It must have been frustrating. So I tried to understand you. But you know what? Your cheating was so obvious. Those designs winning first place, even a blind person could see something was wrong. Yet you thought you were so clever. Actually, others were laughing at you behind your back." I spoke slowly, word by word, believing my tone was moderate without much bite. But Ethan was already shaking with rage. I would never forget everything this person had done to me. Someone I had treated with such sincerity suddenly stabbed me in the back. That really hurt. Life was already so difficult then, yet he actually sent several men specifically to warn me to stay away from Victoria. Fortunately, I happened to return home that time. When those men saw my mother was attractive, they were about to get handsy. I rushed to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, my eyes blood red, with a look of complete fearlessness and readiness to die if necessary. That scared those men away, afraid of causing a death. At that time, my mother was alone in that shabby rental apartment. God knows how terrifying that situation was. She couldn't help but be traumatized. I truly wanted to kill Ethan at that point. "Ethan, do you really think I'm easy to bully? You kick me when I'm down and think I can't fight back? Did that make you feel good?" But I was never a weak person. Swallowing insults isn't something I do. Just wait. Sooner or later I'll pay back everything you did to me double. I'm not some saint. When the time comes, I'll humiliate you thoroughly. You should believe that karma comes around. Evil people get what they deserve." Ethan was breathing heavily, his rage almost bursting through his chest. He raised his fist to punch me, but I reacted faster. I kicked him to the ground, then sat on top of him, throwing punch after punch without mercy. He had no ability to fight back, getting beaten until his face was bruised and swollen. In the end, he actually shouted an apology. Such a coward. I stared at him, saying word by word, "This doesn't even begin to repay what you owe, Ethan. You'll have to live in fear, anxiously waiting for more karma to come." Standing up, I took out a tissue from my pocket to wipe my hands, then threw it on his face. Turning back to him, I said, "Whether Victoria and I are from the same world or not is none of your business. You like her, but I'm the one who's been her childhood friend for over 20 years. Do you know what 20 years means? Think about it carefully." My tone was firm, full of confidence. After all, with Victoria, 10 of you couldn't compare to one of me. Ethan thought after my family's troubles, Victoria hadn't helped because she looked down on me, so he contemptuously believed I had no one by my side and could be bullied at will. Suddenly thinking of something else, I feigned surprise and said, "Oh, right. I forgot to mention Victoria is my fiancée." I smiled, my eyes curving. After returning home, thinking about Ethan's face changing colors and trembling with rage, but not daring to say a word, I couldn't stop laughing. But it wasn't enough. He needed to suffer more. At 10 that night, while I was drawing design plans, my phone rang. It was Victoria calling. Sincere, she stammered. "Come take me home." There was a business dinner that evening, but her alcohol tolerance had always been poor. She must be drunk. I carried Victoria princess style all the way back home, then laid her on the bed. However, she wouldn't let go of her arms around my neck. My hands were braced on either side of her body as I said with restraint, "Victoria, be good and let go of me." But she held on even tighter. Victoria wrapped her arms firmly around my neck and pulled me forcefully into her embrace. Hey, Victoria, come to your senses." Victoria nuzzled against my neck, whimpering, hug me." With her eyes closed, appearing drunk and confused, her warm breath fell on my neck, making that patch of skin burn hot. She kept murmuring, hug me, sincere." My heart suddenly softened, and I stopped struggling, asking, "Are you still a child? Acting cute? I should record this." Victoria asked back, "If I'm not a child, I can't be hugged?" "Right, then I am a child, so hug me." I suspected she wasn't really drunk. How else could she make such logical arguments? After letting her hold me quietly for a while, I tried to push her away again. I needed to make some sobering tea, or she might have a headache tomorrow. But Victoria wouldn't let go. She opened her tightly closed eyes, looking at me with a mix of pleading and grievance. "Sincere, don't go." I patiently explained, "I'm not leaving. Just going to make you some sobering tea." She seemed not to understand, just repeatedly saying, "Don't go. Don't be angry with me, okay?" I couldn't help but laugh, saying, "You're truly drunk. How could I possibly be angry with you? I'd rather worship you, ha." Looking into her eyes tenderly, I softened my voice. "Victoria, don't worry. No matter what you do, I'll always forgive you." Drunk Victoria was kinda cute, but her voice took on a crying tone, repeating, "Don't be angry with me. I'm sorry." I suddenly froze, moving closer to look at her. "Are you crying?" Victoria released her tight hold on me, slowly sitting up. She hung her head, her loose hair covering half her face, hiding her emotions. Her voice was slightly hoarse as she spoke. "I feel guilty." At that instant, many thoughts flashed through my mind, even ridiculous ones like, could she have been behind my family's bankruptcy? What could she have done to feel so guilty that she would cry while drunk? I sat up too, not rushing her, gently coaxing, "Victoria, don't cry. Be good and tell me what happened, okay?" Victoria fell into silence. After a while, she raised her head, her eyes wet and red at the corners. "When you were in trouble, I wasn't there by your side in time. Sincere, you must have suffered so much. I'm sorry." I was suddenly stunned, feeling like my heart might stop beating. It ached slightly. Then I laughed out loud, though my eyes stung. "Miss Victoria isn't supposed to be the top student? How can you be so stupid? You've helped me so much, saved my life, done everything you could, become my support, and yet you're still thinking about that 1 month of suffering when you weren't by my side." I tried to keep smiling, but my voice choked up. Finally, tears fell one by one. Victoria looked at me, frantically trying to wipe them away with her fingers, but she couldn't help crying herself, her face showing even deeper guilt. "Don't cry. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you alone for so long. I shouldn't have failed to notice your situation. I was swamped with work then, There was a spy in the project team. Sincere, please don't cry, okay? I had indeed been through a very difficult time recently. That feeling of suffocation, of seeing no future ahead, it was unbearable. I never imagined Victoria would care so much about my suffering, care enough to cry, care enough to feel guilty, but she hadn't done anything wrong. Victoria pulled me into her embrace and I reached out to hug her back. After a long while, when our emotions had stabilized, neither of us let go. In the quiet night, only our breathing and heartbeats could be heard. My voice was hoarse as I told her, Victoria, don't feel sorry. I'm really grateful. Thank you for being by my side. After that, Victoria remained silent for a very long time. Then suddenly she lowered her head, moved close to my ear and spoke very softly, yet with absolute determination, word by word. If one day you have only one person left by your side, that person will definitely be me. It was a promise, a guarantee, an oath. The night was quiet, with only heartbeats going thump, thump, thump. I had a secret I'd kept for many years. I liked Victoria. I wasn't sure when these feelings first bloomed, but I definitely liked her. However, she always maintained that proud demeanor, making me think she absolutely had no feelings for me beyond friendship. So I hid my feelings, carefully playing the role of her antagonistic childhood friend. Because I liked her so much, I even became somewhat timid. I was afraid that confessing would ruin our years of friendship. That day I delivered food and unhesitatingly kissed Victoria. It was because I thought we probably wouldn't have much interaction anymore, might not even see each other much. So I became bold just that once. I used making money as an excuse, and she didn't suspect anything. I had liked her for so many years. What was wrong with a few kisses? Besides, she was the one who suggested it. Later, I never expected she would do so much for me. I was incredibly touched and felt somewhat helpless in my heart. These feelings probably couldn't be let go now. I would probably love her for a lifetime. That night, we somehow fell asleep. The next morning when I opened my eyes, I immediately saw that beautiful, enchanting face. A stunning start to the day, a feast for the eyes. I stared at her for a long while, feeling like I could still remember how she looked as a child. She was beautiful even then. Actually, if you calculate it, Victoria should call me brother. I'm a few days older than her. Just as I was thinking this, Victoria suddenly spoke. How much longer are you going to stare? I was startled, snapping out of my thoughts and immediately letting go of her, jumping out from under the covers. You were awake already? Victoria opened her eyes, completely clear-headed, her ears slightly red. But she still teased me. I thought you were going to kiss me. I actually had that thought earlier. Being caught made me angry from embarrassment. How could that be possible? Am I that kind of person? Victoria propped up her head, smiling mischievously. If I hadn't been forcefully kissed before, I might believe you. Half a month later, the architectural design competition results came out. I won the gold prize with an absolute advantage. The judges were full of praise, and I hadn't let down all my hard work. The competition was very prestigious, but the popularity of my work still surprised everyone as it went viral, riding the wave of cultural confidence. My design was Chinese style, exquisite and beautiful, with numerous details. I had spent a lot of time and energy researching for it. At the awards ceremony, while giving my acceptance speech, I wore the engagement ring from 5 years ago. Victoria, who had been invited to attend the ceremony, sat in the audience. Through countless cameras and people, I smiled at her with particular tenderness, my eyes seeing only her. After the ceremony, we went home together. Victoria had worn a haute couture evening gown to attend the ceremony, with an open back design revealing a large expanse of fair, smooth skin that made me almost afraid to look at her. But Victoria kept staring at me unblinkingly, and after just a few minutes I couldn't take it anymore. Somewhat annoyed, I asked, "Why do you keep staring at me? Then why don't you look at me?" I paused but still turned to look out the window, deliberately speaking harshly. "Never mind me. My exposed ears and profile were slightly red. She shifted closer, sitting nearer to me, then reached out to cup my face, turning it toward her. "Look at me." Our eyes met. She blinked at me. "Am I beautiful?" I looked for a while, then closed my eyes in resignation, my tone weakening. "My heart's going to explode." She laughed. "But what can you do? You'll have to look at this naturally gorgeous, heavenly beautiful face of mine every day. Better get used to it." Finally, I also smiled, sighing softly. "I suppose so, since I'll have to look at it for a lifetime. Fiancé." Victoria froze. You. What's wrong? Want to search again about why not-so-bright fiancés suddenly remember they were engaged before she could answer. The car stopped. I pulled her out of the car and into our home. Just after closing the front door, I gave Victoria a light push. Her back hit the door and she asked, somewhat bewildered, "What are you doing?" I lowered my head and kissed her lips. Our lips and teeth met in an intimate dance. Victoria only froze for a few seconds before we pressed closer together. She gasped, trying to push me away, whimpering as the kiss deepened. I held the back of her head, not allowing her to retreat. The feelings I had been desperately suppressing were finally released. But in the end, I picked up Victoria, placed her on the sofa, and then walked straight to the bathroom without looking back. Victoria sat on the sofa, her mind blank from the kiss, breathing heavily. The summer night breeze was comfortable. Victoria and I sat in a rocking chair on the balcony, having a few drinks. After 2 drinks, her eyes became slightly unfocused, so I dared not let her drink more. Victoria asked me when I remembered about our engagement. She lowered her eyes, looking somewhat hurt. "You had completely forgotten about it before." I felt a bit guilty, not daring to tell her that I had accidentally seen her search history. Instead, I told a kind lie. "Actually, I always remembered." Her eyes brightened as she looked up at me. "Really?" I nodded firmly. But the next second, Victoria's face darkened again. "Then why did you pretend not to remember before? Why were there pitfalls everywhere?" I quickly leaned over to kiss her cheek to change the subject. "Well, lovers are destined to be together anyway." She smiled sweetly and we cuddled together. "Actually, Sincere, at 18, I had already considered you as my future husband in my heart." Victoria suddenly looked at me very seriously and spoke. I was slightly stunned. "I always believed I would marry you eventually, and you could only marry me. No exceptions. The elders all said we were well matched, a perfect pair, and we would definitely be very happy together." Even knowing these might be insincere words after they weighed the pros and cons, hearing them still made me happy. For the usually proud young lady to say these words almost cost her half her life. Her fair, delicate face turned crimson. I took her hand, our fingers intertwined tightly. "Victoria, I love you. My heart is unwavering until death do us part." When news spread that Victoria and I were getting married, it shocked the entire company. "Weren't they distant cousins?" I held my forehead. "Great. Lies will come back to haunt you." My explanations had no effect. While rumors usually spread quickly, clarification seemed to hit a wall. When the gossip accidentally reached Victoria's ears, she, who usually only lurked silently in the company group chat and maintained an extremely cold demeanor, suddenly sent 3 messages to all members. "Sincere is not my distant cousin. He was talking nonsense. He has always been my fiancé. Always has been. We grew up together as childhood friends. Sincere and I have absolutely no blood relation." A bold employee decided to take a gamble and posted, "I knew it." After all, CEO Victoria and her fiancé look like a perfect couple. Seeing this message, Victoria was delighted and immediately sent out a red packet. The group chat instantly exploded with messages like 99, "Congratulations on your marriage, perfect match, truly a match made in heaven," and other blessing messages. It was like a large-scale marketing scheme. Victoria was very satisfied with this response. Her anger dissipated immediately, and she generously sent out many red packets. I stroked her hair and laughed. Such a spendthrift, yet my face was full of happiness. Looking back on everything, Who would have thought our story would end up like this? From being sworn enemies who couldn't stand each other, to becoming lovers who couldn't be separated. Life is indeed full of surprises. Just like how Victoria always remembered our engagement when I had completely forgotten about it. Just like how she came back into my life when I was at my lowest point, saving not just my life but also my dreams. People say that the best relationships are when your childhood friend becomes your lover. In our case, my sworn enemy turned out to be my destined one. Sometimes I wonder if our antagonism all those years was just our way of hiding our true feelings. Victoria once asked me, "Do you know why I pretended to hate you for so many years?" I shook my head. She smiled, those beautiful eyes sparkling with mischief. "Because I was afraid if I showed how much I liked you, you would become even more arrogant than you already were." That's just how Victoria is. She could turn even a confession into a playful tease. But that's exactly why I love her. Now, as I watch her working in her office, still with that proud tilt of her chin but with a softness in her eyes when she looks at me, I know that all those years of hidden feelings were worth it. They say that true love stands the test of time. Ours certainly did. Through childhood rivalry, through family bankruptcy, through all the ups and downs. And now, here we are, about to start our new life together. As Victoria always says, if you only have one person left by your side, make sure it's someone who has been there all along, even when they were pretending to be your enemy. And in my case, that person was always going to be Victoria.